Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Good afternoon, friends and listeners. It is a lovely day here in suburban Chicago. The sun is out. It is very warm in the sunshine, but there's plenty of shade and it's kind of partly cloudy, so we got the clouds drifting across the sun. It's a lovely day and the sun is out. It's partly cloudy. You got the clouds drifting across the sun occasionally. It's a perfect day to take a walk and talk with my friends about board games. And you know what time of day it is? Do you know what kind of day it is? It is the kind of day where the calendar has flipped over. It's September 2nd. I did not get outside September 1st to record an episode, which means that right now, this very moment, it's time to do a new Top of the Stack. Okay, so for those of you who are new to the podcast, Top of the Stack is a monthly episode that I do pretty much at the first episode after the new month starts. And during that episode, I talk about what games I played last month, what games I plan to play next month. So it's going to be great. And as always, I like to remind you, I stole the name Top of the Stack and the general idea of it from the podcast of Nonsensical Gamers. You'll be much missed. I noticed that Dan Halstead from the podcast of Nonsensical Gamers recently announced on Twitter that his game Storm Chasers, which he was working on quite a while ago, is available or will soon be available in Target. So I've been keeping an eye out for that. I haven't seen it at my Target yet, but if you see it, check it out. He also designed the game from Plan B Games Beez, B-E-E-Z, which is a abstract strategy game that had very cute bee meeples. They were not beeples though, or like bee figures, they're little statues. So that is where we are and what we're doing. Okay, so into the episode. So in August, I played 47 plays of 38 different games. That's a lot lower than I have had in some months. Often I'm double that in terms of the number of plays. I'm not really sure what the difference was. I didn't have any big game days in August, or not many, and my the number of games I've got going in my online platforms seems to be consistent, but I don't know, I guess I know what part of what it was is that I was at Gen Con for a week and I didn't really play any games at Gen Con, so that would certainly do it. I had 4 games on my Top of the Stack. Remember, it's a successful month if I played 3 of them. The 4 games were Deck Chairs on the Titanic, Res Publica 2230 AD, Streets, and Glass Road. Unfortunately, the only one of those I got played was Glass Road. I really enjoyed it. I did talk about it in a Shooting from the Hip episode recently, so you can check that out if you're interested. But the other 3 I did not get played. So I'm going to roll 2 of those 3 over to the next month. Res Publica 2230 AD is one of those ones where I add it to the list every 6 months or so. It doesn't get played, and then it goes back on the shelf of opportunity one of these days. But both Deck Chairs on the Titanic and Streets are games that I really would like to play soon, and I think I have the possibility and the likelihood of getting them played soon. So it seems like an inevitability that I will get to play those soon. So I'm excited to try that. And the other 2 I'm going to put on the list, Fuse, a real-time dice roller, which I did play once a long time ago when I was at Origins in 2017. But I managed to get a copy of it at Goodwill a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago now, I guess, and I still haven't played it. So when I get a new copy of a game, even if I've played it before, it still goes on my shelf of opportunity. So I need to play that. It's a short one. I think I'll be able to play that with my son pretty easily. And then the 4th game I'm going to add, along with Streets and Deck Chairs and the Titanic and Fuse, is going to be Screaming Eagles. Screaming Eagles is a coffin style, or a wide flat box in the style of the old Clue board games, or the old Parker Brothers board games. It was from the 80s, and it's about jet fighting. It's a dog fighting game. I got it at Goodwill. It has little jets in it. It looks to be amusing. So I'm going to get that played this month to try it out. I did get to try a whole bunch of new games this month. At the beginning of the month, I had tried 86 new games. By the end of the month, I've tried 98. So I'm very close to crossing the 100 games, which is sort of my goal. Try 100 new games each year. Very close to that. Here's the games I got to try. Draftosaurus, Planet Unknown, Cockroach Poker, Dune, a game of conquest and diplomacy, Glass Road, Long Shot the Dice Game, Nightmare Horror Adventures, Lords of Ziddit, Get on Board New York and London, The Guild of Merchant Explorers, Cottage Garden, and Blank Slate. So I think only the 3 of the last 4 games in that list have not been covered yet in a Shooting from the Hip episode. Everything else I have talked about, so I won't go into depth there. I have decided to start doing a thing where I pick my favorite of the new games that I played this month, and that's going to be the Guild of Merchant Explorers. I really did like that. Although Glass Road would be a close second, and Lords of Ziddit was pretty neat too. So those are new games I played. As far as I can remember, I did not play any new expansions this month, nor do I think I got any games out of the dust. Deadline, I played Deadline, which is a mystery solving game, sort of puzzle mystery game. That one may have been out of the dust. Everything else is basically games I've either never played before or play often enough that they would not land on the out of the dust list. So that may not a great month for playing older games, but that's okay. My family continues to kind of very slowly make our way through the 10 for 10. It looks like we've got about 31 plays done so far. Our 2 most played games are Kingdom Rush, A Rift in Time, and Dice Miner at 8 and 7. No other games have more than 5, so I think the odds of me completing this 10 for 10 are very low unless something dramatic happens in the next month. The Shelf of Opportunity has gone from 58 games to 59 games because I did add 2 games and I marked a couple of them off, or maybe it's at 58 games. Basically the shelf has stayed pretty much the same. I'm not making a lot of progress on it because I have had a couple batches of like good finds at Goodwill. I've been doing better in terms of being a little more thrifty with buying brand new games, although I still have Kickstarter games showing up occasionally. That's a delayed effect, right? Like where you buy a game and then the next year you get it, so it counts in your collection in the next year. I also did have quite a bit of shakeup in the collection. If you were to go look at games marked as part of my collection on Board Game Geek, you would see a change, or some changes anyway. It ended up being kind of washed, but basically I went through my whole game chart that my daughter and I worked on, or the game folder that's got all the little cards that show you how to play the game. So if you came to my house and you wanted to play a game, we have this catalog for you to look through of the games we have. And I do that for 2 reasons. One, our basement's a little messy. I'm happy to have you be able to sit at the dining room table and peruse the collection and then pick a game and I can go get it. Second, and more importantly, as I've mentioned before, in order to save space and organize my game, I keep one game on the front of each Kallax shelf facing outward, and then other games stacked behind that one game facing outward. What that means is that the shelf looks really neat, but you can't see 95% of the games in my collection are hidden behind other games, and you can't see them. Which means that if you want to peruse my collection, you have to constantly be taking games off the front of the collection, or you have to look through the catalog. So it's important that we keep the catalog. And it turns out I hadn't really kept the catalog very up to date. And so I went through and checked every game in the collection, made sure there was a card for it, and then we went through the whole collection and marked locations for every game. In doing so, I found a bunch of games that I had left in my game spreadsheet that were in fact not part of my game collection anymore. I also had to figure out what to do with the games that I've taken to school or sent to school with Jenny, because I have a whole bunch of games that my wife has taken to her school in order to use in classes or to have available for when students have free time so they can play some games. So she's taken a lot of our younger people adjacent games, or games that we just don't play that often but are easy to learn and fun to teach. And then I have a bunch of games that I've taken to school to be part of my school game club. Between those 2 things, we have a whole bunch of games that are not actually in the collection anymore, if being in the collection means they're literally on our shelves and you could play them. So I decided to make a change in how I document what's in the collection. And basically I said, if a game is not on our shelves for more than just, a quick loan, okay, fine. But, if it's a game we're leaving at school for the whole year or something, then we remove it from the collection. We mark it in our notes that we still own it. We don't think of it as sold or gotten rid of, but we also don't have it marked as part of the collection in the house. And I don't have it marked as owned on Board Game Geek. Instead, I mark it as previously owned and put in the notes that it's at my wife's school. Now, or my school. It would be nice if Board Game Geek let you customize the categories you could mark for your games so that you could label games like on loan. That would be nice, but I just mark use previously owned and use the notes section to track that. But as a result, I removed a whole bunch of games from my collection. I also did have a bunch that were still marked as in my collection, even though I've removed them because they're on the sell pile. And so I did mark those as removed as well. At the same time, I had a whole bunch of new games that I had marked as owned in my Board Game Geek collection, but had not made cards for. So as I was taking things out of the collection catalog, I was putting things into the collection catalog, and it all came out kind of as a wash. I think in the end, my collection size went up 1 or down 1, something like that in Board Game Geek. My most played game for the month was Through the Ages in the online games. I played 4 games of Through the Ages or completed them. And my most played in-person game was a 4-way tie between the Guild of Merchant Explorers, Dice Miner, The City, and a game that we're testing now, one of our playtest games, which I wouldn't say counts in the context of these statistics. So overall, it didn't feel like a month where I played a lot fewer games. In fact, it felt very game focused because I spent so much time at Gen Con. But again, I didn't actually play that many games at Gen Con. As we move into September, we've got an interesting set of things coming up. On the one hand, we have, because of my school starting up again, I have a changed schedule or ability to play games. At the same time, a more regular schedule means that perhaps family game nights or other things come back into play, and maybe that will shape the experience we're having as well. Overall, it felt like a pretty good summer for game playing. I'm happy with the experience that I had and happy with the games that I've gotten to play. As I said, I have been a bit more picky about which new games I buy, and that ebbs and flows, but it is nice to have been that way because then I can make my choices more carefully. I do have to say, the Guild of Merchant Explorers right now is still on the maybe I'll buy it list. It is easier to justify or easier to tell myself no when I know someone else has a copy and they will be happy to loan it to me at any time, and that helps. But at the same time, a copy that is loaned to me, I can only play as long as it's loaned to me, and then I feel bad keeping it. Now when I return it, then we don't have it at our house. So if it's a game that seems like it's going to get a lot of play, I am inclined toward getting my own copy anyway. But I suspect I'll be able to resist, in part because once we've played all 4 maps, I suspect it's going to be a game that I really just want to play occasionally, not one that I want to play a lot, in which case it can go on the maybe someday if I find it for cheap pile or list, which is more and more the way that I'm filtering for games. I've been really enjoying playing asynchronous games with pals on Board Game Arena, Boîte à Jeux, and Yucata.de. If you're interested in joining me for any of those games, you can do so by going to any of those places and searching for the username Wombat929. Over on Board Game Arena, we have the Pick Up and Deliver group where you can connect with other members of the Pick Up and Deliver community and challenge them to games. We mostly play asynchronously, and people aren't super fast in replying to posts, which I guess isn't that surprising because it's not that robust or busy of space. But yeah, post a message there or send a direct message, and when we get a minute, we'll drop you a line. You can also reach out on Board Game Geek in Guild 3269, which is the Pick Up and Deliver Guild. We'd love to hear what games you've been playing and what you're working on. If you want to share your top of the stack, we usually have a thread about our experience from the last month there on the forum. So head over there and take a look at that. I'm really excited for this next month. The game Streets and the game Deck Chairs on the Titanic are both games I really am excited about and looking forward to playing. And so I'm keen to get them to the table. I really don't know why they didn't get there in August, but 2 months in a row seems like the perfect way to get them played. So that's what I'll do. Thanks for joining me on my walk today. I hope that you had a lovely month playing games, and hope that you will have a lovely month playing games. And in the meantime, I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.